So, hi, Lara. It's great to have you on the show today.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Now, I'm excited to speak to you today because I know you're all about abundance, and we've spoken about wealth and money on the show before, but we haven't taken this abundance angle before. So, I'm really looking forward to really getting stuck into that. And I know you have some really beautiful beliefs around what abundance is and how it can really make sure that we're in business for the long term and that we have this beautiful life to go with our success. But before we do, I'd love to know, how did you become this abundance wealth coach in the first place?
Well, good question. I've been doing this work for 20 years, so it's been quite a long journey. I thought I was going to be an actress, and I started meditating. And basically, in meditation, I started waking up to these psychic gifts that I had that I didn't know I had, that, to be honest, really scared the crap out of me. And I started getting messages. I started seeing visions about, what my purpose was and what I was supposed to be doing next. I thought I was acting. Then I started getting this message that I was a healer, and I didn't know what that was. I started working as a healer very quickly and started my healing career where I was very this general healer, just helping everyone, trying to save the world with no niche at all. And then again, about 10 years into that, I started getting this guided message that it was time to start working, particularly with women, around their relationship with money. And the message specifically was, we need to get money into the hands of heart-centered women, and particularly, business owners, entrepreneurs, change makers in the world. And little old me was like, what? It was completely, well, very uncomfortable to receive this message. But I've been committed to creating in my business and my life, guided by my intuition. So this inner guidance system and this connection that I have, I've been cultivating over 20 years. And I learned to trust it, even though it was very scary and uncomfortable. So I started this transition from this general healer trying to help everyone with no niche into niching into being quite specific with working, with entrepreneurs, particularly women. But it's not just about women. It was about really healing this the feminine power and the feminine energy that's been really been suppressed and shut down over, many generations. So this is really where it began, probably around 10 years ago now, I'd say.
I love that, Jenny, and that they've clearly had some big lessons along the way. And I love this idea of putting money in the hands of heart-centered women. I've spoken on a podcast about sacred commerce, and that was the origin of trade, was feminine energy going into the marketplace and having people live their purpose through sharing their talents in exchange for money and wealth and abundance. And it was just the perfect society, and everyone was in alignment and everything worked until the pharaoh realized, hang on a minute, I can't persuade people to do what I want because they're so in alignment. They're like, no, that doesn't sound good to me. So he destroyed all the temples. And then we've got business has been, like we know it now, very testosterone fueled for many years. So I love that idea of coming back to the feminine, bringing that energy back into the marketplace, because I think it's so needed.
Mm.
But you mentioned that you worked as a healer for 10 years with no niche.
Mhm.
And niching is one of the big lessons that we're always talking about, and I'm always sharing with my clients. How did that go?
Not very well. Well, actually, when my guidance came in, it's like, Lara, you're the world's best kept secret. Because I was completely in hiding. And I actually didn't want anyone to find out about what I was doing, because I had a lot of shame and was very scared about bringing my gifts out into the world, because it was quite different. Now we're much more used to mindset, meditation, and yoga and healing. But back then, it wasn't mainstream information at all. So I was working in this health food shop. I had a little clinic, and it was completely word of mouth. And I was really playing with all these spiritual principles around manifestation and the law of attraction. I thought, well, if it's meant to be, people will come. Very passive, which works to a degree, but it was very up and down, very inconsistent. Over time, I realized I did sort of have a niche, which I was working with anxiety, depression, grief, for people going through big life changes or coming to me, but I had no idea. And the idea of niching, once I found out about it, really confused me for about 2 years. So what I would say is it didn't work at all. We were completely broke. I was in hiding. I had no sense in being able to communicate what I did. I had no message. It was incredibly painful for me to try and communicate. So I had clients, but like I said, inconsistent, feast and famine, no money. And that's partly why I started to have to work with money, because I had completely unconsciously rejected it. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I was all about service. I was all about trying to help everyone and wanting to save the world. And unfortunately, the way I was trying to do it wasn't working very well. But I learned that the hard way.
I think sometimes when we have these experiences where things really don't work, then it comes to a pivot and a complete change. It feels like, well, from the outside, it feels like something completely different and new, but actually from the inside, it isn't. It's just taking all those lessons and doing it right the next time. Did you feel that the experience of your next business was completely different?
Well, what started happening was my first big change was I invested in a business coach, and it was my first big investment, and it was a very big scary leap, and it took me probably a few years to prepare to even do that. So it felt very different because I was learning a whole new language, niching, marketing, sales, all this stuff that in a way in my sort of spiritual healing world all felt bad, like it didn't feel good. And I was so concerned about it being manipulative and like a negative thing. It took me quite a long time to find my alignment, find like, how do I do this whole thing of marketing, sales, business in a way that's in alignment with me, in alignment with my values, in alignment with my heart. So it felt completely different. And I went from, totally undervaluing, undercharging myself to learning how to, product package my work and value my work and putting my pricing up, which, oh my goodness, was so uncomfortable, and getting myself more visible. And that's when I was guided to start my YouTube channel and start to work with an international audience online. So for me, it felt like a completely new world. But at the core of what I do, I would say it's not that different, right? What my actual gifts and the things I'm actually really good at, that's been there as this consistent through line, but it was all about how I was showing up, how I was communicating, presenting, and calling clients in. So it was a very uncomfortable transition for me, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because it just was not sustainable what I was doing. It was not a sustainable business model, which wasn't, with no business model essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's very typical of a lot of businesses because they know they have this gift, this passion and energy for helping other people, and they just want to do that, but they don't build a business around it. And even when I started my first business, which was a communication consultancy, so it wasn't in that realm necessarily, but again, I didn't build a business around it. I just kind of gave myself another job. It wasn't anything I was in control of. I was really at the beck and call of my clients, moved far away from my dream of creating balance and fulfillment and having flexibility. I was just run ragged and my health started to suffer, and I didn't burn out, but came like very, very close. And that was a big warning sign that I had to change things. I think for a long time, I knew it was a problem, but didn't dare to address it because I thought, well, what else would I do? And then as soon as I thought, okay, this has to change, then the next step and the next evolution became very clear and obvious. I love that you really took time, maybe even unconsciously, to create marketing that was in alignment with who you are, who you wanted to attract into your business, how you wanted to show up in the world. And I think a lot of people see marketing as this manipulative practice where it really, really isn't that. Marketing, in my mind, as an old school marketer, is taking your client understanding and putting that at the heart of every decision you make. So you just make this beautiful experience for your clients and for you. And I love the word you used, in alignment, in order to go forward. Was there anything in particular that you found helped you to do that, to find your specific path?
Yeah, and this is essentially what I hold space for with my clients, is tuning in, spending time really tuning in and listening to. My language is the heart consciousness, the intelligence of the heart, which now we have science to actually be able to kind of prove that that's a thing. Your gut instinct as well, this sort of inner guidance system, or you could call it the soul, or you could call it source or the universe. I see that we have this immense intelligence that lies within us. It's our dormant power and it's our dormant creative power. And so my passion is helping particularly women to tap back in. It's our inner knowing, it's our intuition. And yet those aspects of ourselves have been so squashed and suppressed, and we've been so taught to put our kind of our value outside, that we don't have value, everyone else has value, we need to kind of listen to the outside world. So it's about coming back in and listening. So for me, I literally could not create out of alignment. So what happens for me is, if I'm out of alignment, my body gets unwell, or I feel so stressed and overwhelmed and anxious that I can't create. So it sounds good that I took my time, but it's almost like I couldn't move forward, and it was immensely, immensely frustrating, and I didn't understand what was happening. I thought, okay, I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z with marketing, business, sales. I literally couldn't if I tried to do it out of alignment. So what I do is I have to spend time in inner practice. So meditation's one entry point, tuning in or journaling and really listening to what is this, because my thing was quite spiritual, quite energetic. It wasn't, what I do isn't sort of mainstream information, so it took me a little while to figure out, how do I communicate this, how do I explain what I'm doing in a way that makes sense to people. So it's a process of really going in. I call it creating sacred space, creating space and time to really drop in, tune in, release the old ideas, because there's a lot of old programming and belief systems that we need to release actually in order to step into this alignment, which kind of integrating this abundance idea. So creating in alignment with your true abundant nature, or your heart, or your soul, or your body wisdom.
Yeah, and I love that you call it creating a space to really listen into your inner your intuition. And as you say, a lot of us have learned to tune out of that and not trust our gut instinct, because men don't have it in the same way. So in a sort of traditional work environment, then it's not seen as a real valid thing.
Yes.
But it's a huge superpower that as women have, is this intuition, this gut feeling that tells us instantly if something feels right or not. And we really need to learn to trust that.
Definitely, definitely. And it's an interesting thing to navigate, because also when you're about to step out of your comfort zone in business, you can also get that feeling that something doesn't feel right. So it's also, what's really interesting about it is sometimes we have to slow down to speed up to get clarity. Is this my protection pattern that's trying to keep me safe and stuck and small? Or is there something about this that's not quite in alignment for me? So it's a bit of like becoming a bit of a detective or an investigator to figure out, what's my own fear that's trying to stop me from moving forward, and what is maybe needing to be adjusted or shifted slightly to feel in alignment and integrity to be able to move forward. And I love that, because even if it is a fear, there's an intelligence in that. And we just need to create the time and space to listen. And that's what we haven't been taught to do, to honor our emotions, to honor how we feel, right? To listen to that inner voice. And it takes a bit of time to figure out what that voice is trying to say, especially if we haven't been raised in an environment where that has been listened to. So it's quite a powerful healing and transformation journey of really going into a space of deep trust, which I think serves us so well in business, because then we can really learn to trust and kind of believe in ourselves as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, our emotions are really powerful and important, and they tell us something. And sometimes it's telling us that it's too soon. Sometimes it's telling us that there's a fear that we need to work through, that's maybe some hidden limiting belief that we haven't addressed yet, or a gap, and we just need to ask for some help. And it's always giving us really, really useful information about how to move forward. So I love that idea of slowing down, tuning in, giving that space and time to listen, and then figure out the next steps from there, and the steps that are right for you. And I think people feel, particularly from social media, sometimes you have to take massive action, but that's not how success is built. It's really built from these tiny steps along the way. So taking those tiny steps in the right direction, and stopping and listening and taking your time, is going to come up with something that's much more robust and suited to you. And as you said at the beginning, able to last the long term.
Absolutely. And my keywords for that is slow, steady, sustainable, right? Because you can do massive growth, but it tends to lead, particularly to women, it tends to lead to burnout. And we're creating something that's not sustainable. At least that's what happens to me. If I go too fast, too soon, my body kind of collapses. So there's a part of us that might be like, yes, I'm ready to soldier on. And yes, I want that 6-7 figure business or success or whatever we think. But we have to be able to hold it. So I'm all about building sustainable foundations. That's within our business systems and structures, like practically, but also within our nervous system. So our whole system, I'm really passionate about, if we're supporting our whole system, our body, our nervous system, our emotions, we will then know how to build sustainable systems and structures for our business growth as well, because they mirror each other. So again, I think we're quite scared to go slow, right? We think faster is better and more is better. And I think that's quite a toxic kind of misinformation that we've been fed. And part of this journey is figuring out how to do things in a healthier, more balanced way.
Yeah, and I like that you touched on having the systems in place as well and having that solid foundation, because yeah, unless you have those systems, the processes, the inner self-belief and confidence, the support, the team, all of these things in place, then it's really, you don't have anything to go forward with. You are just going on your own fuel, and that's going to run out sooner or later, particularly if you're trying to go really fast. So I think you're so right. Having that solid foundation first is going to help you go a lot further, a lot faster, but in its own time, when you're ready.
Yes. And I've learned all this the hard way, by the way.
I think this podcast really is a shortcut to success, because I don't think we've had any guest on here who's like, yeah, I have figured it all out straight away. Everyone's like, well, I did this and that was a massive mistake. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So how does all of this idea of abundance and manifestation and alignment play into money and wealth in your business?
Yes, so I'm very passionate about this because I grew up in wealth, and I'm also now surrounded by, what we call successful business owners and entrepreneurs. And the thing is that, again, if we are creating anything, money or business, that doesn't have that heart, soul, or integrity or alignment in it, there's a huge cost, right? A huge cost to our health, a huge cost to our relationships, and also ultimately doesn't lead us to fulfillment. Happiness is great, but for me, about feeling fulfilled. And so I've watched the devastation of what looks like a successful life when it's not held in the foundations of, yeah, you could call it the heart or the soul or abundance. There's many ways to describe abundance, but for me, it's about connecting to the sense of I am enough. I am whole. I am complete. Everything I need is here now. Coming from wholeness, connection, and alignment with our true abundant nature. And this is about connecting to nature, connecting to the earth, connecting to our body, connecting to life. And when we create from abundance or wholeness or I am enough, we create in a very different way. And what the problem is most of us have an unconscious wound, particularly women, that I am not enough. I am not worthy. I am not deserving. I discovered this by interviewing and coaching and having calls with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women. All of them have this core wound of not enough. So I became incredibly curious about this. And I was like, what is going on with women and not feeling enough? And realized that what was going on was there's this great wound of separation that was a complete lie. And so for me, the opposite of that is I am enough, but it's tapping into this vibration or energy of abundance, which includes money, but it's not just money. And why it's so important is if we are creating from a place of abundance, or there is enough and I am enough, what happens is we create in a way that's serving us as the business owner, but not only us, all of life. So we start to understand that as we are creating from I'm enough, we start actually creating in our businesses in a way that's serving life, that is much more in a place of serving humanity. And so why I'm so passionate about this sort of sustainability thing, is that when we come from abundance, we are creating in a way that where all life gets to thrive, including yourself. And for me, I see this is quite essential for us moving forward at this time in this planet. But even not thinking about the environment, not thinking about, the bigger picture, the individual woman in her business, right? And being able to do this in a way that she can keep going, that she doesn't burn out, that she can really show up for her business, for her clients, but also for her family, friends, and live a very whole and complete life. So what I see is a lot of people, especially when we're coming from it's not enough and I'm not enough and lack and scarcity, we tend to focus on one area. So you might be really great with money or really great with business, but other very important foundational areas can get really neglected, health or relationships, for example. And then we're in a state of poverty, right? Even if we have the money in the business, there is still this deep lack. So my passion is, how do we create this whole and balance a life of abundance, living abundance, which includes money, includes business, but it's not just that, right? We live a well-rounded life. And from there, I just see us creating ripples of really powerful transformation. Can also be quite simple. It doesn't need to be like huge business success. It can actually be simple, sustainable success that's much more fulfilling. So that's sort of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about abundance, particularly with business and money.
I got goosebumps when you were talking about the ripple effect there. But it's so true, isn't it? I spoke to Nicola Semple on the show recently, and she's a career coach, and she saw the same thing, that the biggest thing she was always coming up against with her clients is this idea that they're not enough. So she created these I am enough cards to help with that beyond her coaching. But when you believe that you are enough, you do have the skills. You can create something valuable with exactly who you are right now and what you have already. It really enables you to add a deeper level of value to the world, because when you believe you're enough, you can really give the most of you. You can be self-full as you go out into the marketplace. And as you say, then those ripples become significant waves as you go out there. So when someone starts working with you and they are in that position where they really have this sense of lack, that they're not enough, what happens the moment that they feel, I am enough, I can do this?
Well, it's beautiful to watch women sink into I am enough. They connect to their power. They connect to their creative power and their ability to really create powerfully and authentically in a way that is really life-giving, but to themselves. So women start to learn how to receive, how to set healthy boundaries, how to honor themselves, how to actually put themselves first within life, because women were taught to sort of give everything away and to be everything to everyone else, and we forget ourselves. And to me, it's the power that comes through, which is love. It's aligned with the heart, so it's heart aligned power, which then really knows how to take care of everything, including herself. And it often drops a lot of the BS, right? Of all the things we think we should be doing or that we think we should be, that creates all the stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And even when we do create successfully in our business, we can't enjoy it. That's what I found. Like, it's hard to enjoy anything if you're coming from that lack and not enough. So it's stepping into gratitude for life, being so grateful, feeling so like joyful and love filled. And this isn't about perfect. It's not a constant state, but it's about stepping into that more and more, the richness of life and what a wealthy and abundant life truly means, which includes money and business and all that, but it's not just that. It's one important piece, but not everything, right?
Yeah, and I just love that whole life approach as well, that once you really step into that power, as you say, everything else falls into place, and you get a bit more perspective, I think, as well, when you step into what's really important, to give yourself that space to create, to deliver value, and to share your gifts with the world. Then it's quite a peaceful, tranquil state, and I'm so pleased that you're out there helping women achieve that as well, and keep that profit and wealth, because you do need the money side as well as everything else. It all needs to be in balance. Lara, I've really loved everything you shared today. I've had goosebumps like several times. But is there any other final piece of advice you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Well, it's coming back to what I was talking about already, which is about your inner guidance system and really trusting yourself, but also creating the space to connect and go within. So it's tuning in to yourself, but also tuning in to my language is the consciousness of your business, or the consciousness of the wealth that you want to create, and creating time and space to tune into that. There is a great intelligence in your heart center, in your body, that will actually show you and guide you into how to create more from a place of abundance. But we need to stop, we need to slow down, relax, calm and balance our nervous systems to be able to tap into that inner knowing and intuition. And like you were saying, it's often simple. So I would say If anything's getting really complicated, it's probably a good sign. You've kind of left that abundance alignment, because I find that for the most part, when we're creating from alignment and creating from abundance, there's a simplicity. So create this space and go to listen and go within and develop this relationship of trust with that part of you. It's a very, very powerful space of effective creation. It's not wishy-washy. It's actually very, very effective, but it's just different to what we've been sort of trained in. So it takes a little bit of time to trust, right? To build that kind of understanding and getting that kind of data, right? That this actually works. And it can take some time. So imagine it's like planting seeds in a garden. If we plant a seed, we don't expect it to be bearing fruit the next day, right? And, understanding that kind of cycle of nature, that some things take time. So really slowing down, slow, steady, sustainable. Those are my key words to remember in creating a life of abundance.
I love that idea of simple and slow and transformation. It takes time. It's taken you several years to get to where you are today. So to move into the next evolution or next era for you and your abundance, it is going to take some retraining, rethinking, and time. And if people want to know how to do that, do you explain that in your book?
Yes, I have a 5-step process I take you through in my book. It's called Money Manifestation Mastery, but it's really about using those steps to create anything in your life. So, and I have a lot of free content I give out on my YouTube channel, and there's a lot of information out there to be reminded, really, because this deep down inside. It's just to remind you how this all works.
Great. So I'll put all those links in the show notes, but for anyone who's listening to this on the fly, what's the best way for them to find you?
There's a few ways. I want to say my YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, Lara Waldman Official, Facebook, Lara Waldman Abundance Activator. There's my website as well, larawaldman.com. I'm on LinkedIn. There's a number of places to find me. And just send me a message, reach out, and we'd be very happy to hear from you.
Fantastic. Lara, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing abundantly all of your knowledge and advice. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my great pleasure.